Welcome to the world of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Enjoy the listening. The dark vastness of space lay ahead of Ryan. Through the viewport, an endless sea of stars punctuated by the occasional distant nebula. He'd been alone for months now, pilots of this advanced NASA spacecraft Odyssey, on a mission to chart the farthest reaches of known space. The isolation didn't bother him. He trained for this his entire career. What did nag at him was the growing sense that, despite all its technological summits, humanity had merely scratched the surface of the universe's mysteries. Ryan's eyes flicked over the ship's instrument panels monitoring life support systems and fuel levels. Everything was nominal, as it had been for weeks. He was about to settle in for another uneventful shift when a proximity alert blared through the cockpit. "What the hell?" Ryan muttered, his fingers flying over the controls. The NAV system had picked up a previously uncharted planetary body, and it was big. He adjusted course, bringing the Odys into a wide orbit around the newly discovered world. As the planet came into view, Ryan's breath caught in his throat. Two suns blazed in the sky, casting harsh light across an endless sea of sand dunes. The atmosphere readings were returning, his breath being, though only a desert world seemed to hold nothing living, yet something drew him to it. Ryan flipped open the ship's communication system. "Houston, this is Odyssey. I found an uncharted planet at coordinates." He recited the chain of digits, then paused and asked for permission to do a surface reconnaissance. It took some time before Mission Control finally replied. "Odyssey, this is Houston. Your request is okay. Continues with extreme caution and maintains contact. Good luck." Ryan, a shiver of excitement ran through him as he piloted the ship into the atmosphere of the planet. This was what he lived for, the thrill of discovery, of being the first human to set foot on an alien world. And the Odyssey touched down on a flat plain of red sand. Ryan couldn't help but smile. He donned his EVA suit and pedaled through the airlock. The first step onto the alien soil churned up a small cloud of dust. Ryan placed the American flag, more out of tradition than any rightful claim to the planet. He flipped on his suit's recording equipment and started to record. Surface gravity is about 0.8 times Earth's normal. Air's very thin, but breathable. Twin suns in extremely dramatic temperature swing. It is 52 degrees C, and no indication that there are any large life forms, or, for that matter, any vegetation. Topography, largely sand dunes with a few rocky outcroppings visible on the horizon. Ryan spent the next few hours collecting samples of soil and atmospheric samples, cataloging everything for later analysis back on Earth. He was about to wrap up the initial survey when something on the horizon and caught his eye. A glint of metal out of place among the endless dunes. Curiosity piqued. Ryan trudged across the sand toward the anomaly. As he drew closer, his eyes widened in disbelief. It was unmistakably the wreckage of a spacecraft, but not of human design. The vessel's hull was composed of a shimmering, almost organic-looking material that he'd never encountered before. "Houston," Ryan said, his voice tight with excitement, "I've found what seems to be the remnants of an alien ship." "Repeat." "I have found proof of alien technology." He approached the wreck, carefully scanning for signs of radiation or other dangers. The ship had obviously been here some time, partially buried by the shifting sands. Ryan circled around the craft, looking for an entrance. That's when he heard it, a soft whimper, barely audible above the sound of the wind across the dunes. Ryan froze, certain he had to have dreamt it, but there it was again, unmistakable, the sounds of a crying child. Heart racing, Ryan scrambled over a distorted portion of hull. What he next would witness would forever be etched in his mind. Huddled in the shadows of the wreckage were two small figures. As his eyes adjusted to the darkness, he realized with a jolt that they weren't human children. Their skin was a pale, ethereal blue. Delicate patterns of swirling lines adorned their faces like intricate tattoos, and their eyes, huge, almond-shaped in a deep violet color, stared up at him with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. "My God," Ryan breathed. He knelt down slowly, not wanting to frighten the alien children any further. They seemed to be twin girls, no more to be more than 3 or 4 years old by human standards. Their clothes were in tatters, and they looked terrified and malnourished. Ryan's training kicked in, overriding his shock. These were living being in distress, and that made his course of action clear. He is calm again. "Houston, we have a situation. I found survivors, 2 alien children. They appear to be in need of immediate medical attention, requesting guidance. The silence from mission control stretched on for what seemed an eternity. Ryan knew they had to be reeling from this unprecedented discovery. Finally, a response crackled through Odyssey. "This is Houston. Your priority is ensuring that the survivor's safety and all is well. Use your best judgment and stand by for further instructions." Ryan nodded more to himself than anyone else. He turned back to the alien girls who watched everything he did with war curiosity. He raised his hands, palms up, in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. "It's okay," he said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you. My name is Ryan. Can you understand me?" The girls tilted their heads in unison, reminding Ryan of curious birds. One of them hesitantly reached out a small blue hand toward him as their fingertips touched. Ryan felt a strange tingling sensation. Suddenly, a flood of images and emotions washed over him: fear, hunger, loneliness, and a desperate plea for help. Ryan gasped and stumbled back, breaking the connection. The alien child who had touched him let out a soft coo that, in some way, conveyed apology. "Is it all right?" Ryan said, steadying himself. "That was unexpected, but I think I understand now. You need help, don't you?" Both girls nodded forcefully. Ryan made a decision then, and their protocol be damned. He couldn't leave these children here to die on this desolate world. "Okay," he said, standing up. "I'm going to take you somewhere safe. Can you walk?" The girls struggled to their feet, but it was clear they were weak from hunger and exposure. Ryan scooped them up, one in each arm. They were surprisingly light, and he could feel their rapid heartbeats against his chest. As Ryan turned to head back to his ship, a gust of wind kicked up a blinding cloud of sand. He instinctively shielded the girls with his body, but when he looked up, he saw, with alarm, that visibility had dropped to near zero. A sandstorm was brewing, and they were caught right in the middle of it. "Hang on tight," Ryan told the girls, though he wasn't sure they understood his words. He activated his suit's heads-up display, using it to navigate back towards the Odyssey. The wind howled around them, pelting Ryan with stinging grains of sand. Just when he thought they were making progress, a monstrous shape loomed out of the storm. Ryan's blood ran cold as he found himself face to face with a creature straight out of a nightmare. It was serpentine, at least 20 feet long, with rows of gleaming teeth and eyes that glowed in eerie green in the gloom. The alien predator let out a bone-chilling shriek and lunged towards them. Ryan dove to the side, still clutching the girls tightly. He scrambled to his feet and ran, heart pounding in his ears. The creature gave chase, its sinuous body undulating across the sand with terrifying speed. Ryan's lungs burned as he threw himself to the limit. The girls clung to him, their little body shaking with fear. Just when he thought all hope was lost, the familiar silhouette of the Odyssey appeared through the swirling sand. With a final burst of speed, Ryan reached the ship's airlock. He slammed his hand on the emergency override, practically falling inside as the outer doors hissed shut behind them. The alien predator crashed against the hull with a resounding boom, but the reinforced metal held firm. As the inner airlock cycled open, Ryan stumbled into the ship's living quarters. He carefully laid the girls down on his bunk, then collapsed onto his knees, gulping for breath as the adrenaline began to ebb, leaving him shaking and reeling from what had just occurred. The alien children huddled together on the bed, watching Ryan with those huge violet eyes. Now that they were in the ship's artificial lighting, he could see them more clearly. Despite their alien features, there was something undeniably childlike and vulnerable about them. Ryan pulled off his helmet and ran a hand through his sweat-soaked hair. "Okay," he said, more to himself than the girls. "Okay, you're safe. Now let's get you some food and water, and then we'll figure out what to do next." He rummaged through the ship's supplies, finding some nutrient bars and a container of purified water. The girls watched his every move, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and weariness. Ryan approached, slowly holding out the food and water. "Here," he said. "Tender, you must be starving." The twins glanced at one another, then turned back to Ryan. Warily, one of them stretched out and accepted a nutrition bar. She sniffed it cautiously, then took a small bite. Her eyes grew wide, and she quickly finished the remainder. Her sister followed suit, and soon both twins were ravenously eating and drinking under Ryan's tearful gaze. Then a wave of protectiveness washed over him. Those children had clearly been through some traumatic ordeal. They were Alone in a hostile world, the sole survivors of what must have been a terrible crash, and now, by some twist of fate, their lives were in his hands. He his communit again. Houston, this is Odyssey. The survivors are aboard my ship. They appear to be in stable condition, but I have no way to contact them verbally. Please advise on what steps to take from here. The answer came back in less than a few hours. Odyssey, stay where you are and wait for further instructions. We're summoning an emergency assembly to decide on our next move. This is uncharted, and we need some time to call international contacts and xenobiologists. In the meanwhile, ensure the safety and well-being of the survivors to the best of your ability. Ryan nodded in acceptance, then turned his focus back on the girls. They'd finished their meal and were now wandering the ship's living quarters with slow curiosity. One of them reached out to touch a control panel, and to Ryan's amazement, the panel lit up with a soft blue glow. Hey, careful with that, he said softly, drawing her hand back. The girl looked up at him, and suddenly the air around her shimmered. Ryan watched in amazement as several small objects, a stylus, a data pad, even his coffee mug, began to float, suspended in midair. Incredible, Ryan murmured. It was clear these children possessed abilities far more than anything he'd ever seen. The floating things gently thudded back to the ground as the girl's concentration began to falter, and she smiled shyly at Ryan. Over the course of the next few hours, Ryan did his best to try and calm the alien twins down. He fashioned makeshift beds for them, using spare blankets and pillows, and sat with them for a time, simply to try and establish a sense of trust and safety with the planet's twin. Suns began to set, casting the barren landscape in a surreal orange glow. Ryan found himself facing a difficult decision. The girls were clearly intelligent beings, and leaving them on this desolate world seemed unthinkable, but bringing them back to Earth would open up a Pandora's box of ethical, scientific, and potentially diplomatic issues. Ryan looked at the sleeping forms of the alien children. In the short time they'd been he'd already grown to love them. Their innocence and vulnerability stirred something deep within him, a protective instinct he hadn't known he possessed. With a deep breath, he made his decision. He would bring them back to Earth. It wouldn't be easy, and he knew he'd face intense scrutiny and question, but he could not abandon those girls to an unknown destiny on a hostile alien planet. Ryan sat down at the ship's main console and began entering the coordinates for the long journey home. As the Odyssey's engines hummed to life, he looked back at the sleeping girls. He did not know what challenges lay ahead, but he was decisive in offering these freak miracle kids a chance in the dark to be able to have their lives live at Houston. He said, his voice hard with resolution. This is Odyssey preparing for liftoff. I'm taking them home. As the ship broke orbit, leaving behind the barren world and its killing sandstorms, Ryan felt a searing sense of excitement and dread. He knew that his life and destiny, and perhaps the fate of humanity itself, had forever just been altered. But gazing at the peaceful faces of the alien twin whom he knew, he was in his heart doing what is right. The expansive spaces lay before them as the Odyssey began her long journey back to Earth. Ryan settled into the pilot's seat, his mind racing with thoughts of the future. He had no idea what awaited them when they returned, but he was ready. Now his mission was clear: protect these extraordinary children and bring them safely to their new home. As the alien world receded behind them, Ryan allowed himself a small smile. Whatever happened next, he knew that the greatest adventure of his life was just beginning. The return of the Odyssey to Earth was met with a mixture of awe, fear, and intense scrutiny. So when Ryan decided to take NRA and Lina back home, it ignited a global frenzy of scientific curiosity and paranoid speculation for weeks. He found himself shuttled between debriefings, medical examinations, and tense meetings with government officials. Throughout it all, Ryan proved himself steadfast and adamant about protecting the alien twins. He fought tirelessly to assert their rights, arguing that they deserve the same protections and opportunities as any human child. Finally, after months of legal spats and withering arguments, Ryan was awarded legal custody of NA and Lina. As he stood in the newly furnished living room of their suburban home, Ryan felt a wave of relief wash over him. The girls explored their new surroundings with wide-eyed curiosity, their blue skin shimmering in the sunlight, streaming through the windows. "Well, this is it," Ryan said, gesturing around the room. "What do you think?" NRA tilted her head, a habit Ryan had come to recognize as her way of processing new information. "Home?" she asked, her grasp of English still limited, but improving daily. Ryan nodded, a lump forming in his throat. "That's right, this is our home now." Lyanna approached, holding up a framed photo. She'd found it showed Ryan in his NASA uniform standing proudly next to the Odyssey before his fateful mission. "Papa," she said, pointing at the image. "Yeah, that's me," Ryan replied, kneeling down beside her. "But I like Dad better than Papa." "Okay." The twins exchanged a glance, then nodded in unison. "Dad," they repeated, the word filled with a warmth that had filled Ryan's chest. The first few weeks of their new life slipped by in a whirlwind of activity. Ryan worked tirelessly to attempt and make life seem as normal as possible for the girls, to instill routines, introducing them to the bare essentials of human society. He marveled at quick minds and eagerness to learn, even while grappling with the challenges of raising two alien children in a world that wasn't quite ready for them. As summer drew to a close, Ryan faced his next big hurdle: enrolling the twins in school. He stood in the principal's office of Oakwood Elementary, trying to project an air of confidence he didn't entirely feel. Principal Harriet Simmons looked at him over the top of her glasses, her face a photograph of skepticism and barely held terror. "Mr. Anderson, while we appreciate that your circumstances are somewhat unusual, I'm not aware that our school is cut out to deal with pupils of such fragile complexity." Ryan leaned forward, his jaw clenched with defiance. "Mrs. Simmons, NRA and Lyanna are incredibly bright and enthusiastic learners. They have gone from strength to strength in terms of assimilating life on Earth. All they need is a chance." The principal sighed, shuffling the papers on her desk. "And what about their abilities? We can't have students levitating objects or creating light shows in the middle of class. It would be disruptive, not to mention potentially dangerous. The girls have been working hard to control their abilities," Ryan countered. "They understand the importance of blending in and consider the opportunity this affords the other students an opportunity to learn firsthand about acceptance and diversity up close." Mrs. Simmons didn't look entirely convinced, but nodded reluctantly. "Very well, Mr. Anderson, we'll give it a try, but I warn you, at the first sign of trouble, there won't be," Ryan assured her, hoping he sounded more confident than he felt. The first day of school arrived all too quickly. Ryan knelt in front of NRA and Lyanna, adjusting their new backpacks and fighting back the urge to keep them home, safe from the potential cruelty of their peers. "Remember what we talked about," he said gently. "Try to fit in as best you can. If anyone gives you trouble, tell your teacher right away, and no using your powers, okay?" The girls nodded solemnly, their violet eyes wide with a mix of excitement and trepidation as they walked towards the school entrance. Ryan couldn't help but notice the stares and whispers from other parents and children. He squared his shoulders, determined not to let it bother him. "Mr. Anderson," a voice called out. Ryan turned to see a young woman approaching, her warm smile a stark contrast to the way it looked from the other adults. "I'm Karen Lewis, the girls' teacher. I just wanted to introduce myself and let you know how excited I am to have NRA and Lyanna in my class." Relief filled through Ryan. "Thank you, Miss Lewis. That means a lot." Karen knelt down to the twins. "Eye-level hello, girls. I'm so happy to meet you. We're going to have a wonderful year together. I just know it." NRA and Lyanna exchanged a glance, then smiled shyly at their new teacher as Karen LED'd them into the school. Ryan felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this could work out. That hope was short-lived. By the end of the first week, it was clear that incorporating the twins into life at normal school would be significantly more difficult than Ryan had envisaged. He sat at the kitchen table, head in his hands, as he read through the latest note from Miss Lewis detailing the day's events. NRA had inadvertently levitated a classmate's pencil case when she got excited during a math lesson. Lyanna's skin had started to glow during story time, casting eerie blue light across the classroom, and both girls were becoming increasingly isolated from their peers, who regarded them with a mixture of fear and fascination. A soft touch on his arm startled Ryan out of his brooding. Lyanna stood beside him, her expression concerned. "Dad sad?" she asked. Ryan forced a smile. "No, sweetheart, just thinking how about we work on your reading before bed." As the weeks went by, the situation at school continued to worsen for Ryan. he received daily accounts of occurrences. Kids refusing to sit near the twins at lunch whispered taunts of freaks and aliens in the hallways, and exasperated teachers who were finding it impossible to restore order in classes that had been disrupted by uneven, unbridled powers. On one crisp autumn afternoon, Ryan's mobile rang. As he was leaving work, his heart dived at the appearance of the school's number on the caller ID. Mr. Anderson, it was Karen Lewis. Her voice tight with tension. There's been an incident, you need to come to school right away. Ryan's mind whirling. As he hurtled towards Oakwood Elementary, had the girls' powers manifested in some terrible way? Were they injured? As he pulled into the parking lot, he saw a crowd of agitated parents gathered near the entrance. Inside, he found NRA and Lina huddled together in the principal's office, looking small and scared. Principal Simmons sat behind her desk, her expression grim, and in the corner a boy about the twins' age sat with an ice pack pressed to his head. His parents glaring daggers at Ryan. What happened? Ryan demanded, moving to stand protectively in front of his daughters. Mrs. Simmons cleared her throat. It seems there was an altercation on the playground, according to witnesses. This young man, she nodded towards the boy with the ice pack, was teasing Lina. NRA apparently became upset, and well, she made me fly. The boy burst out, his voice shrill with fear and anger. She lifted me up in the air and threw me. Ryan turned to NA, who was trembling slightly. Is this true? He asked gently. Nara nodded, her violet eyes filling with tears. He pushed Lina, call her ugly alien freak. I got mad, didn't mean to hurt the boys. Father stepped forward, his face red with fury. This is unacceptable. Those creatures are a menace. They don't belong here. Now, Mr. Hoffman, Principal Simmons began, but Ryan cut her off. My daughters are not creatures, he said, his voice low and dangerous. They're children who have been relentlessly bullied and ostracized since the moment they set foot in this school. Where was your great outrage when your son was tormenting them? The room erupted into a cacophony of shouting and accusations. Ryan felt a headache building behind his eyes as he tried to defend his girls while also acknowledging the seriousness of what had happened. In the end, it was Karen Lewis who managed to restore some semblance of calm. She remained silent the entire confrontation, but today she moved forward. Her voice was strong but gentle. What happened here today is because of a lack of understanding and fear on everyone's part, and those children, all of them, deserve better from us than for us to sit here and turn this against each other instead of finding how to move forward so that everyone's safety and promotes understanding. Her words seemed to deflate some of the tension in the room. Over the next hour, plan was hammered out. The twins would receive additional support to help them control their abilities, including one-on-one sessions with Karen. The school would implement a diversity and acceptance program for all students, and as they left the school, Ryan agreed to attend parenting classes especially designed for guardians of children with special needs. He looked down at NRA and Lina, who walked on either side of him, their small blue hands clasped tightly in his. I'm sorry, Dad, NRA said softly. We try harder, be normal. Ryan stopped kneeling down to look the girls in the eyes. Look at me, you two, you have nothing to be sorry for. You are beautiful, just the way that you are. It's the rest of the world that needs to catch up. The twins' faces lit up with identical smiles, and for a moment Ryan felt like maybe, just maybe, they could make this work. But as they approached their car, Ryan noticed something that made his blood. He ran cold. A black SUV with tinted windows was parked across the street, its engine idling as he watched the vehicle pulled away, but not before Ryan caught a glimpse of a man in a dark suit speaking into a radio. He ushered the girls into the car, quickly, his mind racing. This wasn't the first time he'd noticed signs of surveillance in recent weeks. Strange cars parked on their street, occasional clicks on the phone, online, the feeling of being watched when they went out in public. As he drove home, Ryan's grip tightened on the steering wheel. The incident at school was bad enough, but this felt like something bigger, something more dangerous. He glanced in the rearview mirror at NRA and Lina chattering happily in their strange musical language. A fierce wave of protectiveness washed over him. Whatever was happening to whoever was watching them, Ryan knew one thing for sure. He would do whatever it took to keep his girls safe. The next few weeks passed in a blur of parent-teacher conferences, extra tutoring sessions, and tense encounters with other parents. Ryan threw himself into researching techniques for helping children with extraordinary abilities, spending late nights poring over obscure scientific journals and fringe parasites to be an invaluable ally. She went above and beyond her duties as a teacher, spending extra time with the twins and advocating for them fiercely. In staff meetings, Ryan found himself looking forward to their conversations, drawn to her warmth and unwavering commitment to his girls. One evening, as they sat in the empty classroom after a particularly challenging day, Karen, turning to Ryan with a thoughtful expression, "You know, I've been thinking," she said, twisting a pen between her fingers, "maybe we're looking at this all wrong. Instead of forcing NRA and Lyanna to suppress their abilities, iddies, what if we found ways to harness them productively?" Ryan's eyebrows shot up. "What do you mean?" Karen's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. "Well, take Nara's telekinesis. For example, what if we used it in P? She can practice her control by moving light objects in certain patterns, and Lyanna's bioluminescent. We can use that in art class, creating living light sculptures." As Karen continued to sketch out her ideas, Ryan felt a spark of hope ignite in his chest. For the first time in weeks, he allowed himself to imagine a future where his daughters could thrive. They only survive. Their planning session was disturbed by a knock on the door of the classroom. Ryan tensed, half expecting to see another angry parent or school administrator. Instead of that, stood in the doorway a tall man in a crisp suit, the expression unreadable. "Mr. Anderson," the man said, his voice clipped and professional. "I'm Agent Caleb Reeves with the Department of Homeland Security. We need to talk." Heart pounded as he trailed after Agent Reeves to an empty conference room, leaving Karen to babysit the twins. As they sat down, the agent dropped a thick file on the table. "Between them, Mr. Anderson, I'm being frank," Reeves began. "Your daughters have become a national security issue. We've been watching your family since you returned to Earth, and recent events have brought concerns." Ryan's jaw clenched. "My girls are children, not security threats." Reeves held up a hand. "I understand your position, sir, but surely you can see how their abilities could be perceived as dangerous, and there are other factors at play." "What other factors?" Ryan demanded. The agent hesitated, then opened the file. Inside were grainy surveillance photos, shots of the black SUV Ryan had noticed, but also images of other stranger figures, humanoid shapes with elongated, elated limbs and oddly angled features, lurking in the shadows near their home. "We believe your daughters may be the target of an extraterrestrial interest group," Reeves said quietly, "possibly related to their origins. Mr. Anderson, we need your cooperation to ensure not only your family's safety, but potentially the safety of our entire planet." Ryan's head reeled. He'd thought they were being tailed, but this was worse than anything he could have conjured up. As the truth sank and he realized that the fight to give NRA and Lyanna a life that resembled a normal one had just gotten a great deal tougher. "What do you want from us?" he asked, his voice scratchy. Agent Reeves leaned forward, his expression grave. "For now, we need you to continue as you have been, but we'll be increasing our surveillance and protective measures. And Mr. Anderson, be prepared. The day may come when we need to move your family to a more secure location." As Ryan left the conference room, his head spinning with this new information, he caught sight of NRA and Lyanna through the classroom window. They were laughing as Karen demonstrated how to make origami cranes, their blue skin glowing softly with happiness. In that moment, Ryan made a silent vow: no matter what forces were arrayed against them, human or alien, he would find a way to give his daughters the life they deserved. The road ahead would be difficult, perhaps even dangerous, but he was ready for whatever storms life had in store for him. As he watched the twins blissfully unaware of the storm gathering around them, Ryan steeled himself for the battles to come. The greatest adventure of his life was no longer just beginning. It was about to enter a whole new chapter. 3 years had passed since Ryan's fateful meeting with Agent Reeves, and life had fallen into an uneasy routine. The twins, now 8 years old, had been progressing well at mastering their powers, though mishaps still occurred. Ryan and Karen's love had strengthened their combined efforts in keeping NRA and Lyanna safe and secure. That united them even more. On a crisp autumnal evening, Ryan was standing out in the lawn as the girls were practicing their powers under Karen's strict supervision. NRA could now lift minimal objects with greater precision, while Lyanna formed marvelous patterns of light in the air of the scene. Phil Ed Ryan, with a mixed tour of pride and apprehension, a sudden gust of wind scattered leaves across the lawn, and with it came a familiar sense of unease. Ryan scanned the perimeter of their prop, noting the unmarked van parked. Down the street, another reminder of the constant surveillance they lived under. Dad and R.A. called out excitedly, "Look what I can do now." Ryan stepped back into his daughter, making a strain of a smile that's great SW. His words caught in his throat as he saw a shimmering distortion in the air behind the twins. Before he could act, the distortion solidified into a tall, ethereal figure with blue skin and intricate facial markings unmistakably of the same species as NRA and Lyanna, children of Astria, the figure intoned. In a musical voice, "Your time of hiding is at an end." Chaos erupted. Karen rushed to shield the girls while Ryan sprinted toward them, but the alien was faster, extending a hand toward the twins. A pulse of energy erupted from its palm, enveloping NRA and Lyanna in a bubble of shimmering light. No, Ryan roared. Himself against the barrier, he bounced off the impact, sending him sprawling across the grass. The alien turned its gaze on Ryan, its violet eyes filled with a mix of pity and resolution. "Fear not, Guardian. The heirs must return to fulfill their destiny. All will be explained." Before Ryan could respond, there was a blinding flash of light when his vision cleared. The alien and the twins were gone. The next few hours passed in a blur of frantic activity. Agent and a team of government operatives descended on the house, questioning Ryan and Karen relentlessly, but it was clear they were as blindsided by this development as the shell-shocked parents. As dawn broke, Ryan sat at the kitchen table, his head in his hands. Karen paced nearby, her face pale with worry. "How could this happen?" she whispered. "All the surveillance, all the precautions." Ryan looked up, his eyes red-rimmed but filled with determination. "It doesn't matter. We're getting them back." Agent Reeves, who had been consulting with his team in the living room, entered the kitchen. "Mr. Anderson, Miss Lewis, we need to talk." Ryan tensed for another turn of meaningless questions, but the agent's next words caught him off guard. "We've received a transmission," Reeves said, his voice tight. "It's what you need to see this for." Of his great self, he drew out a tablet and set it down on the table. The screen flickered and lit up, revealing an image that made Ryan's heart jump. NRA and Lyanna standing in an ornate chamber, flanked by regal-looking aliens, seemingly uninjured. Their faces, however, were mixed emotions of bewilderment and astonishment. A dignified alien figure stepped into frame, addressing the camera directly. "People of Earth, I am High Council Zura of the Astrian Empire. We apologize for the abrupt manner in which we reclaimed our lost princesses, but time is of the essence. The children you know as NRA and Lyanna are in fact the rightful heirs to our throne." Ryan listened in stunned silence as Zara explained the twins' true heritage. Their parents, the former rulers of Astria, had fled a coup attempt, only to fall victim to ruthless slave traders. In a final act of despair, they had placed the baby princesses in an escape pod, hoping they would be rescued by a benevolent race. "We are eternally grateful to the one who answers to the name Ryan and Anderson for saving our." Zara continued. "Now they have to go back to fulfill their fate and bring peace to our war-ridden empire." As the transmission came to an end, Ryan's mind was reeling, the pieces falling into place. The girls' extraordinary abilities, the constant surveillance, the strange figures lurking in the shadows. But one thing remained crystal clear. He had to get his daughters back. "I'm going after them," Ryan declared, standing up abruptly. Agent Reeves shook his head out of the question. "This is now a matter of interstellar diplomacy. We can't risk to." "Hell with diplomacy," Ryan snapped. "Those are my children." Karen laid a hand on his arm, her eyes blazing with the same determination. "Our children, and I'm coming too." Before Reeves could protest further, alarms blared throughout the house. Outside, the sky lit up with an eerie green glow. Ryan rushed to the window, his heart pounding. A massive ship hovered over their neighborhood, its sleek design unlike anything he'd ever. "Even by NASA days, slave traders," Reeves growled. Reaching for his weapon, they must have tracked the Asrian transmission. The next few minutes were a blur of action as government agents engaged in a firefight with the alien invaders. Ryan and Karen found themselves hustled into a secure underground bunker beneath the house, a precaution Ryan had never known existed inside. They were confronted with a voice from the past, a woman face, simply to reassure them it was not a ghost. Dr. A. Chin, the xenobiologist who had first inspected the twins after they had been brought to Earth. Dr. Anderson, Miss Lewis. She gave them a brusque greeting. I'm afraid we haven't much time. Things have gone further than our worst nightmares. She took them to a closed-off room at the back of the bunker. Inside was something that made Ryan's jaw drop, a sleek spacecraft clearly of alien design. We've been reverse engineering technology from the girls' escape pod. Dr. Chen explained this ship is capable of interstellar travel. It's our only hope of reaching Azria before the slave traders do. Ryan's astronaut training kicked in as he examined the vessel. It was leagues beyond anything NASA had ever developed. But the fundamentals were old. He knew how to fly this now. How long till liftoff? He asked, falling into mission mode once more. Dr. Chen smiled darkly. It's now we have been preparing for this contingency for decades. As Ryan and Karen suited up in the cockpit, Agent Reeves emerged at the entrance to the bunker, his suit scorched and ripped. This is against every protocol we have, he growled. But bring them home safe. Ryan nodded, feeling a newfound respect for the agent. As the bunker roof retracted, revealing a star-filled sky, he took a deep breath. Ready? He asked Karen. She gripped his hand tightly. Let's go get our girls. The ship rocketed into the atmosphere, leaving behind the chaos of the alien invasion. As Earth receded behind them, Ryan focused on the coordinates Dr. Chen had provided. Somewhere across the vast expanse of space, NRA and Liona were waiting. The journey to Astria was fraught with danger. Ryan's piloting skills were pushed to the limit as they navigated asteroid fields and evaded patrolling slave trader ships. Karen proved to be an invaluable co-pilot, her quick thinking saving them more than once. As they approached Astrian space, a massive battle unfolded before them. The slave traders had launched a full-scale invasion, their ships clashing with the Astrian defense fleet in a spectacular firefight. How are we going to get through that? Karen gasped. Ryan's eyes reduced as he sized up the situation. We're small and quick. If we get it just right, we can slip past the mayhem. What followed was the most awful flight of Ryan's life. He threaded through bombs and rubble, only avoiding stray weapons fire by inches. Karen's knuckles were white on the controls, but her voice remained steady as she called out, "Sensor readings." Finally, they broke through the battle lines, the spires of the Astrian capital gleaming visible on the planet below. But their relief was short-lived. A slave trader ship has noticed their approach and was closing fast. "Hang on," Ryan shouted, pushing the ship into a steep dive. They plummeted toward the planet's surface. Hot catch at the last minute, Ryan swooped, skimming over the top of crystal buildings. Their pursuer wasn't so lucky, crashing in a ball of flame. As they sat down in front of the royal palace, Ryan and Karen were immediately surrounded by Azrian guards. But before any confrontation could occur, a familiar voice rang out. "Dad." Karen and Lana burst through the crowd, their faces a ray of laughter. Ryan enveloped them in his arms, streaming tears down his face. For a moment, the universe receded, and they were just a family, reunited. The tender moment was interrupted by the arrival of High Counselor Zara, flanked by an entourage of advisors. Her expression was a mixture of awe and consternation. "You traversed half the galaxy and braved a war zone for them?" she asked, incredulity evident in her tone. Ryan straightened, keeping a arm around the twins. "They're my daughters. I'd go to the ends of the universe for them." Zara's face fell softened. "Perhaps we have underrated the depth of human bonds. Come, we have much to discuss, and little time. The fate of our world hangs in the balance." Inside the palace, Ryan and Karen learned the full truth of the situation. The Azrian Empire was on the brink of civil war, with various factions vying for control in the power vacuum left by the former ruler's disappearance. The return of the twin heirs was seen as the only hope for reuniting the fragmented society. "But they're just children," Karen protested. "How can you expect them to rule an empire?" An elderly Azrian stepped forward, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "They would not rule alone. I am Theron, the girl's grandfather and former regent. With their return, I can lead them until they come of age." In RA and Liona, who had been listening closely, shared a look. At that moment, Ryan saw wisdom in their eyes that belied their years. They had always been extraordinary, but now he realized just how much we understand our duty. In RA said solemnly, But Earth is our home too, and Ryan Dad is our father. Lyanna nodded in agreement. We want to help our people, but we can't abandon our life on Earth. There has to be another way. The ensuing debate lasted for hours, punctuated by urgent reports from the ongoing battle above Ryan, and Karen advocated fiercely for the twins' right to decide on their own way, while the Asrian Council focused on the urgent need for stability in their empire at last. As daybreak spread over the crystalline city, a compromise was agreed upon. NRA and Lyanna would spend equal time on Earth and Astria, learning both human and Astrian ways. They would be acknowledged as the legitimate heirs, with Theon acting as regent until they were adults at 18. They would finally figure out where their futures were headed. As the details were worked out, Ryan pulled the girls to one side. "Are you sure about this?" he asked gently. "It's a lot of responsibility." The twins smiled, their violet eyes shimmering with a mixture of excitement and determination. "We're sure, Dad," Lyanna said. "We can do this, especially with you and Karen helping us." Ryan's heart swelled with pride. They had grown so much in the last 3 years, and he knew they would continue to amaze him with the agreement in place. Attention turned to the immediate threat. Using their combined knowledge of Earth and Astrian technology, Ryan and the Asrian engineers devised a plan to repel the slave traders once and for all. The battle that followed was epic in scale, with Ryan piloting a hybrid craft that incorporated the best of both worlds' technology. Karen coordinated from the ground, her quick thinking and strategic mind proving invaluable, and at the crucial moment, it was NRA and Lyanna who turned the tide, using their innate connection to Astrian technology to activate an ancient planetary defense system. In the wake of their triumph, as the citizens of Astria cheered in the streets, Ryan seized a moment of quiet with Karen under the light of Astria. 3 moons, he dropped to one knee. "I know this isn't exactly the most normal circumstances," he said with a nervous laugh, "but these past few years with you, I can't imagine facing whatever comes next without you by my side. Karen Lewis, will you marry me?" Karen's eyes welled with happy tears as she pulled him to his feet. "Yes, you wonderful, crazy, space-traveling father of alien princesses. Yes, I'll marry you." Their joyful embrace was interrupted by twin squeals of delight as Nara and Lyanna rushed to join them. As the family hugged and laughed together, Ryan marveled at the journey that had brought them to this point in the years that followed. Their lives settled into a new kind of normal. They split their time between Earth and Astria, with the girls receiving education and training in both worlds. Ryan and Karen's wedding was a grand affair that bridged both cultures. With visitors from 2 worlds present, Nara and Lyanna matured into self-assured teenagers, comfortable reciting some Earth pop culture and Astrian political speeches. They quickly bonded with their grandparents and drank in stories of their biological parents through their heritage. On the twins' 18th birthday, the family met up in the backyard of their Earth home as the stars twinkled above. Nara and Lyanna made their long-awaited decision. "We've made." Nara began to speak in a firm, level voice, "that we want to continue on as we have been. We'll rule Astria, but we'll do it our way, building bridges between our 2 homes." Lyanna nodded in affirmation. "Earth and Astria both have so much to offer each other. We want to be the link that brings them together." Ryan and Karen shared a proud look between them. Whatever but obstacles lined their path, they would meet them head-on as a family that stretched across the cosmos. As they all gazed up at the night sky, Ryan looked back on the incredible journey that had brought them to this point, from a desolate desert planet to the throne of an alien empire. It had been an adventure beyond his wildest dreams, but more than that, it had left him the greatest present of all, a family that crossed the lines of worlds. While standing there with the people he loved most in the universe, Ryan realized that the greatest adventure was just starting to